Good morning. Happy Wednesday hump day. I have stuff that goes through my head all the time, and I try to make it sequential, but I don't know. It's repetitive. It's practice. Repetition is how we get things. So I have a routine in the morning, and some of it is it goes by priority, where some of it for me is kind of a must, and then some of it is like, well, if I run out of time or if I sleep later, which ones I absolutely get done. And I try every day to get it all done and make it all a priority because it's all important, the different things I want to do in the morning. And sometimes I get sidetracked if I see something that needs to be done. I meant to pull out that book. That's funny. I remember the author, but not the title this time. Jeff Olson. It was something to do with the Slight Edge, I think is the name of it. One of the things that stuck out in that book with me was he said, when you have things to do, if they take less than 5 minutes, do it right then. Well, there's always a bunch of stuff that takes less than 5 minutes, which sometimes leads you to something else. And we get sidetracked, right? So that's where you have to be aware and stay focused and say, okay, I'm going to do this and then get back. So this morning, every morning, I take time to quiet my mind. I have a couple of meditation has been a strange thing for me. It hasn't developed the way I thought it should, the way I've understood it from other people that I've tried to learn. But I keep doing it and I keep practicing it, and different ways work. Uh, I've recently Russell Targ. He trained people in the CIA. It's a little bit deep for some people, but or a little bit out there. But anyway, I'm starting to learn some stuff from him, and it seems to work. So this morning I was doing. I try to take time just to clear my mind, just to completely clear it. Because I think some of the misconception of meditation is just having an empty mind, right? And I saw somebody once that somebody used the phrase mindful meditation, and somebody argued that and says, well, you're not supposed to have your mind in it. Well, I was reading a book once on Zen Buddhism, and one of the younger monks was meditating, and the older monk came up and slapped him in the back of the head. And he's like, why'd you do that? He said, well, you should have been aware. And he goes, but I was meditating. He says, well, meditating doesn't mean you just block everything out. It means that you're able to focus on nothingness, but still being aware of what's going on around you. So I've tried to do that just for discipline. Just like the other day I mentioned I go bowling. It takes some skill, but I think a majority of sports, if you look at the people that are successful, they have the ability to focus. It's like golf. They say golf is 80% mental, right? So I do things like play darts or whatever I do. It's like, okay, I know the fundamentals, but if I can focus and make my body do what it needs to do to, like bowling, it's just once you find a groove, it's being consistent and making your body do that. So uh, I do that as a practice and a routine. So I try to clear my mind, which is difficult. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for a lot of people because different things come in and you start going off. Well, I try to remind myself, okay, just focus on nothingness for now, get that discipline, and then I'll just let whatever come into my mind, and just let whatever happen. Just let the thoughts flow, and then if something's important, I'll grab onto it. Now, I have, through what I've been learning through Russell Targ, is that a lot of, I don't want to go too deep. A lot of these random thoughts that we have, like dreams and just thoughts, I'm starting to get some clarity to where I think they come from. Uh, I've heard a bunch of different other theories, but this one makes sense to me. But I'm not going to go down that path. So this morning, and that's what happened. Then I try to visualize. I always say, when you want something, you have to visualize. If you could sit there and take the time, which you really shouldn't have to, if you're wanting something, it's just that's going to be a part of your all day. It's just going to be, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm focusing in the moment, but I know this is, the car I want, or the person I want, or the job I want, and that's the, I'm going to do those things to get that. So this morning, anyway, as I was sitting there, some analogies came into my head. And I used to think, well, if it's really good, I'll remember it and be able to revisit it later. But sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. So I popped up and I said, I'm going to write some notes down and do a video on it. And as I do my videos, you'll see I lose my train of thought sometimes because it's going every which way. And I'm hoping at some point, I'm trying to get better at keeping notes, keeping them. I always keep notes and lists and stuff of things to do or whatever. And as hard as I try to stay organized, I always misplace stuff. So that seems to be a constant challenge. So with the videos, because this analogy, I remember what I was thinking, and I can't remember uh, what the whole point was, because I had a whole visual, because I get some crazy visuals sometimes. Uh, well, the visual I had is I guess it was like on a mountain. You're on a mountain all by yourself, and uh, okay, that's what it was, because it was in comparison to the direction that I want to go in my business, which if you want to follow that over at Tracking Money 101, I had to get out of the 9 to 5. I had to build my assembly guy business to create more flexibility and the capital to move on to what I'm doing now. So sometimes we can't go straight from where we are to where we want to be. We have to build a bridge, so to speak. And this goes along with everything else, as far as you have to know if you're going in the right direction, if it's for the right reason, if it's the right thing. And if you take the time to quiet your mind and let those things happen, things will come to you. You've more than likely you've experienced it. You've had weird dreams, or you've had weird daydreams, or you have random thoughts come in your mind. If you just sit and allow your mind just to wander, to me, that's meditating. It's the same thing. It's just taking the time and just let it go. Everything you've ever experienced is in your mind. It's in the memory banks. The problem is the recall. We're not able to recall that stuff. And that's why people that have like photographic memory, it's not so much a photographic memory, it's the recall that they have the ability to do. So everything's there, and you do have access to well, they call it the Akashic records. You can look it up. Like I said, I don't want to go too deep. I don't want to get too hokey pokey. Uh, But when these thoughts come into your mind, you can start saying, well, how does that apply? And you have to take that time, though. You have to take that time for yourself to really get quiet and let it come. So anyway, I have this picture of you're hungry, you're wanting fruit, and you're trying to manifest fruit, right? And you come up on this gorge, and there's a big gorge, and you see all these fruit trees over there on the other side. Some people would say, well, it's not meant to be. Some people would figure out how to go down the gorge and come back up the other side. Some people will figure out how to build a bridge. Some people will go down and see if there's another path around. Some people will just quit, right? None of it's right, none of it's wrong. It's whatever you feel that's necessary for you to do. And when you quiet your mind, you'll be guided to, well, maybe there's better fruit somewhere else. Then I started thinking, okay, what if you were lonely and you wanted somebody, and you see a person on the other side, and you're like, oh, great, this person, So so at this point now, you figure out how to get to the other side. The fruit doesn't taste like you want, it does. It's not any good. The person that's over there doesn't want anybody. They're happy being alone. So that led me to, and that's why I have the how and why up there, is because I was in a relationship once before where, and it seemed like it was around food a lot. Whenever we'd go out to eat, and I love to eat, so I have to be conscious, aware, and so I know that when I want to eat, what I want to eat. And there were times that we would go out to eat, and I would just want an appetizer or just a salad or just a half portion. And she'd, no, you need more. You're a big person. You need more. Uh, and it just it kept happening. So whenever I finally confronted it, because it made me uncomfortable, I was like, okay, now I don't want to go out to eat because now I'm feeling like I'm forced to eat. Well, her reasoning was that that's just her mother instinct. That's just her caring about me. And I'm like, okay. And see, here's where we get the two sides of everything, right? So just being nice doesn't mean that you're nice when there's other people involved, right? If she was nice and cared about me, she would have recognized once I said that, if I said I don't want any more food, or this is what I want, it had nothing to do with where we're going to go, what we're going to do. It wasn't like we were sharing food. It was my own thing. She would have respected that. But instead, she got offended because she was trying to be nice and I wasn't allowing her to be nice and do what she was telling me. It's like you can make the suggestion. You can suggest. That's fine. But please respect my answer. So at what point do you say, it turned into her being nice was being rude, but she didn't see it that way. Now, was it right? Was it wrong? Like I always say, there's a time and a place for everything. So it was wrong for me, and it did become an issue because it ran into other things. And in retrospect, it looked more like of a controlling thing, and then you start looking into the past. But I the only thing I'm trying to say is be aware of why you're doing things. Uh, and that doesn't just mean in a relationship. Like if you want to get another job or something, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Am I really doing it out of kindness and love? Am I doing it really because I care about what the other person wants? Or is it, I think this is what they need, so I'm going to tell them because I'm a nice person and I know better? Well, that's a little bit of the ego, right? And it's a balance because sometimes you do know better, right? You do know better than someone else because they're not aware, they're not taking care of themselves. But it also comes to the point where if someone's not ready and willing to accept the help, then you still look like the bully trying to push something on them. So, the choice at that time comes, well, if you're uncomfortable watching them destroy themselves, then you have to move on. That's their journey. That's a struggle. That's a challenge that I've had. When do I intervene? How much should I intervene? Am I intervening? Again, once you sit down and take time to quiet your mind, and and when I say quiet the mind, you have to be able to take yourself out of yourself at the point. You have to observe yourself from an observer. I think a lot of times, because I see it all the time with people, they give great advice, but they don't follow, they don't practice what they preach. So a lot of times, if you put yourself outside of you and you look at you, you can give your own self advice and fix your own stuff. And as I say this, this isn't just about having personal issues. It's about uh, it's about moving forward with a direction in life, whether it's a job or if it's a business. You have to ask yourself this. We'll use a business adventure as an example. Is this because I've seen someone else that I admire do certain things, and so I want to follow that path? I mean, you really have to dig deep and find and say, is that really what I want to do? And like I always say, it's you. I told my mom once, I believe I was 14. I said, you have to learn the hard way sometimes. And I still believe that. Sometimes you have to experience it to say, okay, I don't want that. Or that experience says, I don't want that, but I do want this. Or it gives you the motivation to go get what you want. So a lot of things there is no just direct answer, and that's part of, some people come to life, come to earth, come to this world, and they just know what they want to do, right? Whether they're a musician or, I mean, you see it all the time. You see it with kids that are 5, 6 years old, and they just have these incredible talents. The drummers and the singers and the whatnot. I don't. Where does that come from? How does that happen? I have my own thoughts and beliefs, and if you want to get together sometime and have a couple of drinks and talk about it and have fun with it, uh, let me know. But just be aware of yourself. Be aware of the people that you deal with. And I guess the whole point of this was sometimes you have to build that bridge to get to where you want to go. And this is more for a video on attracting money 101, but what I learned was, because I really didn't want to, I've done it for years. I'm mechanically inclined, assembling stuff. As a kid, I always took stuff apart and put it back together. I have a creative mind. I'm always building stuff around the house up from scratch. So that was easy for me. Uh, and it just so happened that I went into a job and did that, and that was many years ago, and that was a part-time thing. I was going to school for computer programming at the time, and networking, and got some certifications, but some things in life happened and took me down a different path. But Laura Langmeyer, she has a book, The Millionaire Maker. And what she does is teaches you to take the skills that you have already to create an income and the time so that if you do want to do something else, you can, because you already have that skill. So I fought that for years because it's like, okay, if that's not what I want to do, I'm wasting my time focusing on that. I should go do what I want to do. And it just never evolved. And I don't know if that's just because I had in my mind, well, I have to do this to get to there. And I never convinced myself that I didn't have to. I could have, I believe, if I would have had the right belief. And that's why I say sometimes if you think in your mind, well, I have to do this in order to get that, well, that's going to be the process until you change your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and your expectations. Because if you just because you change your thoughts, if that's really how you feel, that you've got to go from here to here to here to get to there, when there's actually when logically you can say, well, it would be easier just to go from here to here. But I think the way life is, that's going to be the path you have to take, and it's just going to keep coming up. So I gave in and said, okay, I'm going to do this. I did it. Boom. Successful. Did what I needed to do. Now I'm finally moving on. So uh, whatever. Sometimes when I listen back to my videos, I'm like, God, I'm rambling. But I think uh, I think there's bits and pieces that I think it makes sense, and I'm hoping that some people will gravitate to it. Uh, I never really had an interest. I've got certifications on NLP, on I'm a certified life coach. I'm a certified law of attraction practitioner, whatever that means. I never really had the desire to go into anything one-on-one. Uh, Part of it for me, looking at the bigger picture, is kind of what I learned from Robert Kiyosaki. If I'm doing one-on-one, I can only do to work with so many people in a day. And it has to do with money, and it has to do with the bigger effect. So I think this platform, I can reach more people. And if the other thing is, like, I'm always, when I watch stuff like this or I read books, I'm like, well, because everybody's situation is different, right? I'm giving in general uh, scenarios. So you listen and then you're like, yeah, but in my life, I have this and this. And sometimes you can't really connect the dots. Uh, if somebody feels like reaching out, then you will be inspired to. Something will tell you, you know what, I feel like reaching out. And if you have a question, I don't think I'll address anything specifically, like the old Ann Landers. Somebody writes in and then she gives advice. I used to look at that and I'm like, man, that's kind of ballsy to say this is what you should do. Uh, but again, a lot of people read that and a lot of people had that same question. The only thing that I would feel comfortable doing is if someone had a question about something specific, I would just give an explanation of what I think I would do. Because again, there's so many factors in a person's personal situation. It's your thoughts and your feelings over time that have brought you to that place. And then the thoughts and feelings, if there's someone else involved or something else involved. So, uh, yeah. Wow, I'm making these really long. Whatever. It is what it is. You guys have a awesome hump day.